Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our weekly Huddle Community Forum. Clap your hands up for being present. We are here at Harlem Commonwealth Council. We had some issues in the building with the elevator, but we're glad everyone transitioned. And thank you to our leadership on site, Minister Christian Matthews and Sister Lisa Harps, for helping us to pivot safely. Let's clap them up. And for those who are watching and joining us that are on the way, we are on the first floor today, not the sixth. So we look forward to you joining us. We have a special presentation from Sisters in Purple led by Sister Angelina Rosado, so we're looking forward to that. So we're going to jump right into it. For those who are not new to Huddle, we have our Did You Know articles. We're only, don't be mad at the messengers, we only can accept 2 comments today each. We have 2 articles presented by Brother Maurice and Mr. Christian. We are welcoming 2 responses each article, because we have to get right into our special presentation, and we're starting a little late because of the difficulties with the building, okay? We're going to start off today with opening prayer from our own Sister Minnie. Let's clap her up from Guns Down Right Back.
Good evening, you Huddle. Good evening. And good evening, Nan. Let us pray. Our Father, which art in heaven, Father, we bow to tell you thank you. We thank you for being our Father. Father, we ask you, bless National Action Network, and bless all the chapters around the country. Bless Youth Huddle, dear Lord, and please bless Reverend Al Sharpton. Father, we ask you to bless Reverend Jesse Jackson family as they're in their dark hour. We ask for all your blessings, dear Lord. Please bless the children, dear Lord, and we thank you for all your blessings. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Sister Minnie. And I just want to also say Happy Women's History Month. And we talked about the meeting last week. So let's clap yourselves up for all of our sisters and queens in the building, like Sister Minnie, like Sister Patrick Joe Sharpton, like Sister Lisa, Sister Ocean, Andrea, Angelina, Dominique, all of our sisters locally, nationally, and of course we're uplifting the one and only Dr. Jacqueline Jackson. Sister Minnie mentioned Reverend Jesse Jackson and his family. She was the matriarch for 62 years. She was with Reverend Jackson. She was a rock for this movement and a rock for their family. So we pay our respects to Sister Jacqueline Jackson, and we love her and we honor her, and the daughters and everyone a part of the Jackson family. But in honor of Women's History Month, we definitely dedicating this huddle to Sister Jacqueline Jackson. All right, we're going to jump into it. Can we please stand for the reading of Scripture? We're coming from the book of 1 Corinthians, chapter 15, verses 54 to 58, King James Version. So when this corruptible shall have put on incorruption, and this mortal shall have put on immortality, then shall be brought to pass the saying that is written, Death is swallowed up in victory. O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory? The sting of death is sin, and the strength of sin is the law. But thanks be to God, which giveth us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. Therefore, my beloved brethren, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord. For as much as ye know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord. May the Lord add a blessing to the reading and hearing of his holy word. We will now have singing of our Lift Up Your Voice and Sing, which is the National Black Anthem. Is Brother Jan here? No, well, who would like to help lead, sing the Lift Up Your Voice and Sing? Dominique is coming. And I whoso will, Ocean, let's clap her up, clap them up. And then Dominique can also follow with the announcements and action alerts which are welcome.
Come on up and sing. Please come and join our side.
Lift every voice and sing. Oh, all right, let's we got accompaniment, sorry. Accompany us.
Rise high as the listening sky.
Good evening, Huddle. So as Ashley mentioned, we bid farewell to Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr. The world has paid its final respects to the civil rights leader, Reverend Jesse Jackson, this past week. My sister Ashley and I was honored to be able to accompany our father and some members from National Action Network, including Reverend Dr. W. Franklin Richardson, the chairman of our board, Attorney Jennifer Jones Austin, the vice chairman of National Action Network's board. She's also the daughter of Reverend Dr. William Augustus Jones, who was very intricate and very instrumental to Reverend Sharpton's upbringing. He was the senior pastor of Bethany Baptist Church in Brooklyn, New York. He also was the shepherd of Operation Breadbasket, which was the economic arm to Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s SCLC, and did a lot of work in the community, and of course bridging the community and activism with, of course, the church and the pillars of the church. And he was very instrumental to Reverend Sharpton's life, one being that he introduced him to Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr. And so it was very moving to have his daughter to join us in the contingency to go and pay our final respects to Reverend Jesse Jackson. And so many gathered from all over the country, all over the world. The president of South Africa flew to Chicago for the services, and there were so many people that were there, so many dignitaries. There were 3 former U.S. presidents who spoke and paid their respects, and it was just a very moving thing to be able to see how so many people came together, how so many people came to pay their respects to Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr. and the amazing, important work that he has done for so many years. Like I said, former President Barack Obama, Governor J.B. Pritzker from Illinois, former President Bill Clinton, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, Congressman Jonathan Jackson, who is one of Reverend Jesse Jackson's sons, who is now a congressman, who I feel delivered the eulogy of the century. I felt like he really spoke very well and eloquently, not only about his relationship with his father, but of course about the charge forward. And those of you who were able to watch it or watch it online or live streamed it, he also has charged it forward with Rise, Jesse, Rise. We knew, of course, the famous slogan from Reverend Jesse Jackson's presidential campaign, Run, Jesse, Run. And he has transcended that to Rise, Jesse, Rise. So it was a very moving tribute to his father. And there was not a dry eye in the building. I'm telling y'all, it was amazing, it was incredible. And the spirit of Reverend Jackson certainly lives through all of us in terms of how we are committed to this work, and how we will, of course, carry the torch and move it forward. Very important and very pivotal time for us over this past weekend as we laid this giant in our world to rest. Also want to talk about, and this is not in the action alerts, but on Sunday we went from Chicago to Selma, Alabama, where we convened for the 61st commemoration. Reverend Sharpton calls it a continuation, but a commemoration of what happened on that tragic day of Bloody Sunday, 61 years ago. How, our ancestors, those who are, some of them are still alive. We were even joined, and I was happy to even meet some of the foot soldiers who marched across that bridge, the Edmund Pettus Bridge, 61 years ago, to fight for the right for people of color to vote. And so it was very, as I thought about it, I'm like, 61 years is not a long time, right? It's not a while ago. So if you think about it, we actually haven't had the right to vote that long. And so we can't really take for granted the access that we have now, the access that we have fought so hard to obtain that we have now. And so it really does dismay me to hear young people especially talking about, oh, my vote don't matter, or it doesn't count, or it's not important to vote, it's really not that serious. Because walking across that bridge yesterday, it brought me to tears, because people literally got beaten, like bloody. Some people died to walk across that bridge so that we have the right to vote. And so I just feel like we as activists and we who are committed to, of course, this work, we have to do more to really spread the importance of it. Maybe we take a trip down to the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Maybe we take a trip to Selma, as we've done in the past. Those who have been in National Action Network for a while, we actually did the reenactment. We marched from Selma to Montgomery and did that same exact walk that they did all those years ago. So just see how it felt like, see what they endured, what they went through. And so those of you who may have been around, we even slept in churches, and we got cots, and we sheltered in churches on the way. We tried to really embody what they experienced. And of course, we have so many liberties now that we take for granted. But remember, back then they didn't even have cell phones. They couldn't. So it was an more organic movement. But we have transcended that to the liberties that we have now. We have to really utilize what we have now to make it more impactful, to really charge it forward, so that the next generation understands the importance of what happened before, right? To understand where we need to go and the importance of that. So it was just a really, really amazing weekend to experience being a child of the movement. I was in awe of everything I've experienced this weekend, and I know I look tired, but I am, because we were Team No Sleep. And I just felt like, I was like, wow, if they did this, they could do this every day. I can't get up and complain that I only slept 2 hours. I have to keep doing the work, because they would not complain about that. And so it just really I really encourage young people to experience things like that, to go through things like that. There's an amazing museum at the ends of the Edmund Pettus Bridge that talks a lot about the right to vote and the fight for the right to vote, how they were jailed. So many things happened to get us to where we got the right to vote. So I want y'all to really do some research. If you don't know a lot about it, you don't know what happened on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, there's also that movie Selma that came out that really talks a lot about that experience, that you could see the visualization of it if you wanted to. I encourage you to watch that film as well. National Action Network's convention, so we're less than a month away. We're only a few weeks, actually, from the national convention, where we will welcome one and all to our annual national convention in New York City at the Sheraton Hotel. People will once again convene from around the country and from overseas. We have a big international panel that's happening on Thursday this year of the convention. And there's a lot going on, but for this special occasion, we will organize, we will strategize, we will unite for the year ahead and for the ongoing fight for civil rights. This year's convention theme is appropriately titled, Straightening Out Tricks in 2026. Yes. So from April 8th through the 11th at the Sheraton, we invite all of you to join us, activists, educators, elected officials, entertainers, students, international voices. We have a whole contingency of students coming from various HBCUs that will be joining us this year at the convention. So we are really, really serious about not only our commitment to fighting injustice, right? But we are also very serious about formulating that unified agenda, coming together from various sectors, various generations. We've got to come together and we've got to unite, and we have to be on the same page. We've got to talk, we've got to communicate, and we have to come together in order for us to really figure out what's the best strategy? What things can we be doing in our community to enhance the experience of fighting for liberation, and how we can all get there collectively if we do our part. So I hope that you'll join us for the convention, April 8th through the 11th at the Sheraton Hotel. You can register online, www.nationalactionnetwork.net, or you can call us. We got folks that are always on the phones ready to take in your registration, but you have to register. We really encourage you to register, and we really encourage you. Think about this. I talked about what happened 61 years ago, but think about 61 years from now. When they are, they may have us in a museum somewhere, they may have a roster of National Action Network's convention 2026, the year where Donald Trump was president, the year where they were talking about rolling back DEI, the year where, all these things are happening. And there's a roster of the convention delegates listed somewhere in some museum. Wouldn't you want to be on that roll? Wouldn't you want your name to be documented as someone who took this seriously and who made a commitment to say, I'm a part of this, I want to be a part of the progress? Imagine your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren coming to a museum and saying, wow, look at my great-great-grandmother's name. Look at my great-great-uncle's name up there. So this is something we take very seriously. Please register for the convention, okay? Yes, you can clap that up. Register for the convention because we all want our name to be on the roll. We want our name to be implemented in history. And so I encourage y'all to register. It does not take long, but I promise you it will be worthwhile for many generations to come. Trump's war within Iran. Talk about that. As Donald Trump dragged the nation into war with Iran, Reverend Sharpton, NAN's president and founder, weighed in with his thoughts on MS Now during several appearances. He was on The Beat with Ari Melber, where he discussed the growing criticism of the administration's approach to Iran and what it means politically and how he's losing some of his biggest supporters, talking about Trump. People are, not falling for the okie doke anymore. And so people are waking it up all over the country. People who voted for this current president are now seeing that there are things that he said or didn't say that just ain't adding up. The math ain't mathing. And so here we are facing more turmoil, facing more interesting turns that's happening in legislation. And we really need to be involved, and we need to be insightful, and we need to be active participants of change. As many Americans came out to vote early in hotly contested primaries this past Tuesday, Reverend Sharpton also shared his thoughts both on his radio show and on MS Now. On Morning Joe, he discussed the closely watched Texas primary that I know that everyone was talking about, the Texas primary, and also highlighted the fact that Black and brown voter engagement has been strong. So we have seen in places like Texas, the vote is strong. However, he emphasized that at the end of the day, the question is simple: who will be best positioned to defeat John Cornyn in November? And so we've got a lot to talk about, and certainly want to stay involved with what's happening across the country. And shout out to, we got a lot of chapters also in Texas. Our Galveston chapter really stepped up. Galveston, Texas really stepped up in the light of these primaries. National Network is nonpartisan, so we don't endorse candidates. But it is important for us to continue to get out and encourage people to vote. So Galveston, Texas was on the move. They was out there every day, registering people, talking to folks, having a motorcade that was going to different communities to encourage the vote. And that's exactly the energy that we need to have all across the country to build the momentum, to strengthen the fact that we know this is important and we all got to do our part. Okay, I'm going to stop talking for a minute. Thank y'all so much for your time. I'm going to turn it back over to Ashley.
Thank you, Dominique. Is there anyone else has announcements or important information they would like to share? I just want to thank those who went out. Dominique and I were honored this past Friday at Christian Cultural Center by Elevate Inc., Women on the Rise, and I know Brother Maurice, Pinnacle, and a few others went out to support. We weren't there, we were in Chicago, unfortunately, but we appreciate the support, and thank you to Dr. Q English for just noticing us and thinking us worthy to award us. So thank you very much for that. So we're going to jump right into our Did You Know articles. And then we want Angie to move to the front because as soon as we finish, we're going to jump right into our special presentation. Just a question because Dominique went into a lot of what happened in Selma. Oh, and I just want to shout out Jamie Bland and the New Jersey chapter of the National Action Network, and Sister Cheryl Huff, the Middle Tennessee chapter. They were definitely present, boots on the ground in Selma. It was great to see. It's always great to see man in the building on the road. It was also, we saw a Chicago chapter was also present in Chicago. So it was good that Reverend Sharpton, as he was doing his due, it was good to see chapter members of National Network and our signs and banners out there too. We are not a local organization, we are national. And it was very, very good to see that. And we would not be national without those national leaders. So again, salute to you all for being present on the ground. And You can come, Maurice, we're going to start with you, and then Minister Christian. But with Selma, I just want you guys to remember, who knows the significance of why you even know what Selma Bloody Sunday, the commemoration, what is that? It's just 2 words. Voting rights. Voting rights. So without what happened in Selma, we would have never gotten the Voting Rights Act. This is what happened on Bloody Sunday, that violence that happened on that bridge. The bridge is literally no longer than from the front of this building to the back. It's not like the Brooklyn Bridge or Manhattan Bridge. Short distance. And the state troopers, that's why we came Bloody Sunday, the violence that the state troopers put on those marches, simply for advocating for what we do. Imagine if we were marching and they just started beating you for no reason because you wanted the right to exercise your right as a citizen of this country. That's what happened. And because the world was privy to seeing that violence on camera, it led to the Voting Rights Act because people could not ignore what was going on in this country, the ugliness of what was going on. And right now we're facing a rollback with the Voting Rights Act. There's literally a provision they're trying to change the Voting Rights Act that can affect how we all vote. So I think it's interesting, 61 years later, the reason we were out there commemorating is now on the table. Basically, that can change everything. And it was important, like Dominique said, it was special to be there, but it was important to set the standard that in the spirit of those who were there, from John Lewis to Reverend Jesse Jackson, we have to go forward in order to fight for our rights. No matter what, no matter who, no matter who's in the White House, we have to go forward and make sure that they know that we're not going to let them take that away without hearing from us. All right? I just want y'all to know that because a lot of commemoration happens and we don't understand. We get caught up in the flowery parts of it. But it's ugly. What happened to us and what happened to us in this country is ugly. But we can't let it happen again and again and again. All right, Brother Maurice?
All right, hello everybody. I'm Maurice, as you know, and the article that I'm going to be reading is regarding what they've been talking about, which is the Voting Rights Act. It's about voting rights groups that raised alarms about the case before the Supreme Court. So what Bloody Sunday, Selma, the March Across the Bridge actually led to was the creation of Voting Rights Act, right? And that protected our right to vote. Now, the Supreme Court is going to be ruling on Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. So, what is Section 2? The Voting Rights Act's most consequential statutes of the Civil Rights era dismantled systemic voter discrimination and outlawed barriers such as literacy tests that existed primarily in the South. So before the creation of this act, in southern states, it was commonplace to disenfranchise black voters by any means necessary. Whether that meant you came to your polling place and everybody else was getting the right to vote, but then you came in and there's a big jar of marbles waiting for you. And they say, okay, well, you have the right to vote and you can. If you could guess how many marbles are in this jar. And when you got the number wrong, they said, oh, okay, well, sorry, you can't vote, and sent you on your way. This act is what protected against all of that. Now, the biggest blow to the Voting Rights Act came in 2013, when the Supreme Court struck down a provision that required 9 southern states with a history of black voter suppression to get federal approval before making changes to their voting laws. Now, these were the states that were the biggest culprits in discriminating against and disenfranchising black voters, right? So why would the Supreme Court, that just became 6-3 conservative, all of a sudden think that a rule that was put in place to protect voting rights suddenly is no longer relevant? I mean, if it's not relevant, it doesn't hurt to have it on the books, right? That's my personal opinion. So the new challenge is rooted in Louisiana v. Callis. That's a redistricting case that's focused on the constitutionality of the state's congressional maps, specifically the creation of a second majority black congressional district in 2024. So before the creation of the Voting Rights Act, you could have a pool of black people that live in the same district, right? And the state itself would realize, well, if you guys pooled your resources, you would have sufficient voting power to win your district. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw you out of your district. And we are going to put each of you in a large non-black district where your vote will, in effect, will become nullified, basically. And there was nothing to stop them from doing that. So that's what Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act did. Now, they want to overrule Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And the argument that the justices made in 2013 was that Well, we've come to a place now as Americans where we no longer have that kind of racism. And we don't need protections like these anymore. Well, I mean, if you're paying attention to everything that's going on in the news, I don't think that we've actually come that far, right? We saw how many of you guys paid attention to what happened with Jasmine Crockett this past weekend here in her primary. I think that she got a rude awakening, right? She ran a good campaign. Everything that she said was true. It's a majority-minority state, right? And she's come a long way. She almost won just with the black vote alone. She had 92% of the black vote. Talrico had the white vote. Talrico had the Asian vote. Talrico had the Spanish vote. Now, I want to say this, and I give all glory to Jasmine Crockett. This is one of our leaders that was taken out right now. Okay, she was doing such a great job. She's a voice for black people, and I think that she deserves a seat. They redistricted her seat, which is why she had to run for Senate in the first place. Okay, she ran a good race, but we don't have any margin for error with our black leaders. Her race has to be a lesson to the rest of us, right? You can't afford to have any slip-ups. Your opponents can afford to do that. But if you know that they're changing districts in your if they're changing voting rules in your largest district, I don't care if it's a week or 2 weeks before the campaign, you need to be out there telling them, hey, you're not going to be voting in the same place that you were voting in all the time. All right, so all the other black candidates that we've got and all the other Democratic candidates who are going to be running their race should take the lesson from that and act accordingly. So I'm not going to belabor this. John Lewis and everybody else walked across the Edmund Pettus Bridge to give us our voting rights that we have today. And Donald Trump and this new wave of leaders that, I'm not even going to call them leaders, okay, because it's like a new wave of incompetent hires that are just like, we got podcasters in charge of the military. We have, like, they replaced one incompetent person who was the head of ICE, and they're putting this other guy who's like the head of a plumbing company or something like that, I think. Literally no experience, and they're making decisions that affect all of our lives. We're engaged in a war. We have tariffs being raised. We have like all kind of stuff going left and right, all right? And I think that, as they said, the convention is gonna be a good time for us to come together and focus on the issue of voting rights. We have to find, and what they're speaking about in this article also, is that people at Selma were saying, well, we have to come up with contingencies. We have to find ways to protect our voting rights should they decide to gut the Voting Rights Act. Because under normal circumstances, that wouldn't happen. But like many of you, I don't have very much faith in this Supreme Court. So different states are gonna have to get together and pass laws, state laws, that will in effect have the same effect that Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act did. And they can't wait until it's gutted. They gotta start doing that kind of stuff now. So I know this was a heavy topic, and we have other guests on to consider it in them. I don't want to take too much time. Two people, if anybody would like to come up and say something about the Voting Rights Act and Selma and what it means to you or whatever you want to say, come up.
Good evening, everybody. One of the most frightening things that we need to understand is that Jasmine Crockett didn't drop the ball. We dropped the ball. We have to understand that it's one nation under God. And if they have the Ku Klux Klan and the skinheads and whatever else they got to put their money in corporate America, put their money behind this nonsense, because at the end of the day, we this far away from being slaves again. We this far away from being have no value whatsoever after all the contribution we contribute. And they're gonna give it away to our immigrants. Just like when we was fighting for restitution for being enslaved. What happened? They brought in millions of immigrants to the country and gave it to them. The money they talking about they didn't have for us. It's so important for right now that the most important thing I would like to make is that until we understand that we need a political action committee nationally. Because AIPAC owns everybody. Our representatives are everybody. AIPAC owns everybody. Until we understand the power of political action committee, it's a waste of time. Vote don't have no value.
Thank you for that, brother. And I just want to remind everybody, you can come up. I just want to remind everybody that yes, you have to also be diligent, or you have to also be diligent about guarding your voting rights. At least 1 week or 2 weeks before it's time for you to vote, especially in the midterms, as important as it is, you need to check your voter registration to make sure that you are still on the voter rolls, right? Because right now, disenfranchisement is the goal for the opposition. So if they kick you off your voter rolls before the election and don't tell you anything, you better make sure that you double, triple, quadruple check to make sure that you are on there. If you don't know how to do that, Google. Your state has different rules and different things like that. Google. We got ChatGPT. I live in NY. How do I check my voter registration status? And then you follow the instructions. You also need to check in advance your polling location at least 1 to 2 weeks before you are about to go to vote, and then closer to that time. Where is my polling location if I live in such and such? And it will tell you. You need to do that. You can't count on your local elected official to do that, or the person you are voting for. This is too important of a race coming up. We need to change the trajectory of where this country is going. So let's focus. All right, Minister Sandra, you are the last question. Bring us home.
I understand, like you're saying about the voting rights. It's a lot of stuff going on, and we must be attentive and be aware that things is happening quick. And he doesn't care. I've been saying that, he doesn't care. We know he don't care. If you're not in an organization that's under a leader that is bringing us information like Dr. Martin Luther King did, even Dr. Reverend Al Sharpton did. He's doing it. He's bringing information to us for us to wake up our mind. These people are waking up now. I'm talking about the ones that are working out there in Washington, D.C., that voted for him and wanted him in there. Now they're waking up around this world. They're waking up. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Minister Sandra. All right, I'm going to pass it on to the next contributor, Minister Christian. Clap him up.
Thank you. Thank you, Maurice, and thank you, everybody, for bearing with us this evening. And I have a quick little change. I'm going to be quick because I want to hear from our guest presenter, but as Maurice was speaking on the political climate of what is happening, my article is from the Griot, and it is entitled, "Number of Black Republicans in Congress Continues to Shrink After the Primaries." We are, as you know, we just dealt with a primary. Some states dealt with a primary, some major states dealt with a primary. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett did not win to be the U.S. Senator for Texas. However, the person that did replace her, Reverend Dr. Freddie Haynes, is replacing her in her seat, and who is a very big advocate and a very big personality down there in Texas, and is somebody that did not take AIPAC money for his campaign. But what they are dealing with now is a shrinking number of Black Republicans in the caucus. So after the dust settled from the primary voting on Tuesday, the future of 5 lone Black Republicans in Congress becomes clearer. Although Tim Scott, a Republican from South Carolina, was not up for re-election, a few of his peers faced very big contested races and announced that they would be leaving Congress to run for other offices this year. Byron Donalds confirmed last year that he will give up his congressional seat in Congress and is now running to be Florida's next governor. And if he wins, of course. James John, a 2-year congressman from Michigan, announced that he will be departing Washington to also run for governor. And although some polls show him as the front runner for the GOP nomination, he has yet to win a statewide race in his political career. Other two notable black Republicans, Wesley Hunt and Burgess Owens, found themselves making tough decisions for different reasons. Hunt was positioning to win the GOP nomination for his Senate seat without the approval and endorsement of the president. He wound up finishing at a very distant third place. And so his seat is now gone. And he is conceding and vowing a political comeback in 2028. Then Owens, who was the oldest of all the notable black Republicans, released a statement announcing that he will not seek re-election. He is 74 years old and has decided to retire. So, in my closing, the results are now proving that Tim Scott would be the lone black Republican returning to Congress in 2027. So there are other black people in Congress, but Tim Scott will be the only black Republican. We are also looking to see how the midterms shape out just as a whole. A lot of people were not expecting. Now I do want to say this. I don't know if you people looked at the numbers during the primary. I don't know if you all looked. For Texas, there were more Republicans there were more Democrats that voted in this primary than Republicans. I want to say that again. There are more Democrats that voted than Republicans. It was by almost 2 million votes more. Not just in the Senate, but it was in the governorship that made people open their eyes more and say, what is going on? That means Greg Abbott, who is the current governor, may not be governor at the end of this year if everything pans out to be what it is supposed to be. So I want us to keep our eyes on Texas. I want us to keep our eyes even here at home to see what happens here. We do not have our primary until June. There will not be a Democratic or Republican primary, technically, because both are running unopposed. Kathy Hochul no longer has an opponent, and Bruce Blakeman no longer has anybody challenging him this June. So look out for these major elections because Texas is looking up to turn. There are more Democrats are now registered in that state than Republicans. And we saw that in the primary where almost 2 million more people voted on the Democratic side for the primary than the Republican. So that should give us a sense of hope that things can turn around. But again, as Reverend Sharpton always teaches us, we don't vote for party, but we vote for what is in our best interest. And so whoever that person may be, if they're watching online, if you're hearing me in person here, whoever the person is that is in your best interest, that is going to make sure that when it comes to voting rights, that when it comes to your personal health, that when it comes to whatever it may be, that they are the correct and proper people for that. All right? Are there any questions, comments, or concerns? May the Lord, I'm calling Ashley Brown, who is going to announce our presenter. Okay, our presenter. All right, so today we have a presenter that is coming from Sisters in Purple, and that is in the person of Miss Angie Rosado. She's right here. She's going to come and give us a presentation on King David. And she's going to give us more information as she comes. Let's give her one more big hand. Really big hallelujah.
Peace and blessings, everybody. How y'all feeling today? All right, God is good. He woke us up. Hallelujah. One, I would like to call up the rest of the Sisters in Purple, Shamar Kelly and Angie Martinez, to join me up here. I want to say thank you to Sister Ashley, Dominique, for always welcoming us into the Youth Huddle. This is not our first time at Youth Huddle, and it sure won't be our last. Glory be to God. Hallelujah. So I'll give you guys a little background. I'm Angelina Rosado. I'm the co-founder and executive director of Sisters in Purple. We are a survivor-led domestic violence organization that interacts, that talks about the interaction of not just domestic violence, but also gun violence and community violence, right? And how does domestic violence actually affect our communities in a whole. This week, we were talking about teen dating violence. Everybody know what teen dating violence is? Okay, so it's a little different than what domestic violence is, right? So, February, we actually planned this for February, but the weather did not play with us. Y'all saw that snow. The weather was like, absolutely not, hold on. But February is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. So we planned this workshop for Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. However, awareness for us is every single day, every single month. It doesn't have a specific month the way for the rest of the world does. So Sisters in Purple, we do a little bit of everything when it comes to domestic violence and making sure our community is well educated. So break it down into different sections. We have Sisters in Purple sits on a lot of committees in our city to make sure we're fighting for laws and legislations that should be created, should be revamped. We actually worked on a few laws last year. We worked on the discovery law. We did get a personal call from Governor Hochul to come up to Albany to help with that. And with that is understanding that law is, what's very important in law is the language that's used inside that law. Right? Because when they are in a courtroom, they are arguing language. They're not arguing feelings. Unfortunately, you know, while it may have an impact, but judges don't really care about what everybody else's feelings are inside that courtroom. What they care about is what that law says, and they will follow it to a T. So it's making sure that laws that were created before we came, right? Dominique talked about our civil rights, our voting rights. It's only 61 years old, right? Domestic violence awareness, the law that we have is only 32 years old. I'm 33, right? So it wasn't until 1994 that our government decided that domestic violence was a problem. And they decided that, unfortunately, the way they had it was that the police weren't allowed to respond to domestic violence due to it being a family issue. So police were not involved in family issues. They then had to realize, okay, women are now being murdered at high rates. So then they had to step in and say, okay, this is now a problem. That is only 32 years old, right? So when we talk about teen dating violence and domestic violence, understanding a lot of the women in my family who grew up in a teen dating violence situation had no outlets, right? They were teenagers navigating the world in the 50s and the 40s, having no outlets, right? Domestic violence was so normal, it was so common, so there was no one that ever told them that that wasn't acceptable. So now they grew up and domestic violence starts, right? It's a graduation that happens when domestic violence now comes into place because things are just a little different. So in Sisters in Purple, we fight for a lot of laws and legislations. I'm so sorry, I really hate standing in just in one place. We fight for a lot of laws and legislations. And then we also do a lot of education in our community. So making sure we come outside, making sure that we're boots on the ground in our community to teach our community, not wait for our community to find us, but make sure that the education is coming to our community because we do understand the history of what domestic violence is and the way our people aren't educated on it. So what else we do? Oh, emergency services, my bad. Jesus. That 1 hour really messed with me, you know? That 1 hour really took me out. Emergency services. So we help survivors transition from unsafe environments to safe environments, meaning helping them whether they need to get into a hotel for the night, shelter. We make sure that all our survivors are connected to resources within their respective community. If we can't find it, well, there's no us not finding it. But if you can't find it, we'll find it. Right? And then we make sure that our survivors are taken care of properly. We are not like other organizations that they do self handovers, right? And then that's it. You don't hear from nobody from that organization that you first started with, right? Sisters in Purple is a little different. We do a follow-up. So we make sure that all our survivors are being serviced in the proper way that we also see fit, the way that we believe survivors should be taken care of because we are survivors. And we have the experience of understanding when the system fails you, right? And although the system was designed to fail us, right, there's specific things that's put into place for victims of domestic violence. So we make sure that we hold the system accountable to those specific things that they've decided to put in place, right? So then we have members. So our members are survivors who are a little more far removed from their abuse. They're survivors that are on healing journeys, survivors that want to be in community, survivors that want to learn how to advocate for domestic violence, survivors that want to learn how to educate their communities. So that's a little bit of Sisters in Purple in a nutshell. I have Shamara Kelly with me, who is our co-founder and director of Survivor Engagement, and Angie Martinez, who is the director of Peer Services. So they work directly with survivors, and I'm talking, yes, clap it up for them, please and thank you, yes. Yes. They get the calls sometimes in the middle of the night. They have to work with the case managers, social workers. They are on emails every day, making sure survivors in New York City and even outside of the country, outside of our state, we get random hits up from survivors in different parts of the country who unfortunately, unlike New York City, who we can say is highly blessed with resources for survivors of domestic violence. However, it's just our communities don't know that we have these resources available. So when we now contact, survivors who are in California, survivors in New Orleans, survivors, Arizona, it's unfortunate to know that they don't have the same amount of services and the resources that we have. And one of our biggest things is to make sure that we create a nation. So we started Purple Nation, and that is a coalition of other organizations, domestic violence organizations throughout different parts of the country, coming together to talk about laws and legislations and what you're fighting for in your country, in your state, what's going on there, what's the domestic violence numbers looking like, right? Because we're stronger together. So whether you in California and I'm in New York, your fight is my fight, right? My fight is your fight. So we have to stick together. So that's us in a nutshell. Would you ladies like to say something? So before we get started, I'm gonna pass it over to Ange. Ange's gonna do a little groundwork with y'all, because y'all just got finished talking through a lot of, political climate, and Lord knows the devil was trying us. Child, Lord have mercy. So Ange's gonna have y'all just breathe a little bit, because we like to do workshops, but they're a little interactive. So y'all used to sit here being quiet a little bit. Now we like y'all to talk too. We like y'all to interact with us. We'll be passing around some flyers and stuff, some papers for y'all to look over, to go through it. So I'll pass it over to Angie.
Yes, let's clap it up for Miss Angelina Rosado. So, thank you all for being here. As you all know, my name is Angie. First and foremost, I want to thank that man above. Because of him, we are all here, gathered today to be able to speak about it, right? And speak about things that we really can't talk on a daily basis, that people don't find normal, right? So we're going to do a little breathing technique, kind of inhaling. We're going to inhale the goodness and exhale the negativity. Right? We're gonna take 3 deep breaths at your pace, however you wanna do it. Don't hold your breath, because I don't want you to get lightheaded, but at your pace, okay? So ready? 1, 2, 3, let's take a deep breath in. Release, slowly. Another deep breath. As much as you can, slowly. One more, another deep breath. And just exhale all that fear, doubt, anything that's in your mind, in the back of your head, just release it. So, let's get started. I just want to thank you all again for being here, for taking your time to be here with us. And this is gonna be fun. I love it. Every time we do workshops, I love it. It's actually, it gives me a sense of healing when we're actually in community. I love seeing people of all faces come together and actually wanting to know and educate themselves. Thank you all. Clap it all for yourselves, because it takes a lot. Thank you. So I pass it on to my sister Anne. It's funny because we're both Angies.
So Angie and Shamara are going to be passing you what we have is called a power and control wheel. It is specific for teens. So because we are going to be talking about teens, this is going to help you to not only just identify different forms of teen dating violence in your own community, right? With your own youth, your children, your grandchildren, maybe your neighbor's nephew. Who knows? So a part of this power and control wheel, we'll be able to go through it together. So we understand that domestic violence is dealing with power and control, right? Meaning somebody in a relationship has to have power over the next person. When it comes to teens, the way that looks like is a little different, right? So as adults, there's different ways you can be controlling, right? Financial abuse, 94% of victims of domestic violence have experienced financial abuse, right? As a teenager, you ain't got no money. So you can't financially burden nobody, right? You financially burden your parents. That's who they're financially burdening. So, because teens don't have the financial ability to be able to keep the money away from somebody, right? There's different tactics they use. So their cell phone, right? Everybody knows this day and age, Instagram, TikTok, what else they have? Snapchat. They don't play about these kids are serious on these phones, right? So when we talk about someone needing power over another human, why is that, right? There's so many reasons why. Trauma plays such a big role in why domestic violence comes up, right? And when we have young adults who are living in homes, the domestic violence is present. Domestic violence has been present. Domestic violence has never been shunned upon. They now take that as that's the way I'm supposed to have my relationships. Because this is the way I've seen relationships, this is what I know, right? Because nobody wakes up saying they want to abuse another person. That's not a thing. Now, unless you're a sociopath, I'm not too sure. But, you know, but it's not a thing. This is a taught behavior, right? So when they say hurt people, this is the realm we're going down, right? So a lot of youth, unfortunately, have lived in abusive homes. They've seen abuse happen, whether it's in the home, in the community, in the auntie house, uncle house, grandma house. Someone has taught them, whether they saw it on TV, but it was a taught behavior. And the issue was that nobody told them that that wasn't okay. Nobody stopped them in the tracks. So we talk about peer pressure, right? When it comes to teens, having the right fit, making sure your sneakers look right? Jordans is $220. I don't know if y'all knew that, but it's expensive being a teen now. It's really expensive. They don't do Payless no more. That's not a thing for them. So the urgency, right, to look right, to look the way your counterparts look the way your peers look it's something that's serious. So when we're talking about peer pressure, you know, when someone wants you to do something, we have wanting you to be with them only, right? You can't hang out with your friends. So I'll give you guys a little backstory of my own personal story, which is where I like to go with it. So I am not just a survivor of domestic violence, but I am also a survivor of teen dating violence. So my abuse started when I was 15 years old. Now I did not know that I was in a teen dating violence relationship. I had no idea because abuse was so normal. It was something that I started seeing, not just in my household, because every woman in my family is a survivor of domestic violence, right? And I used to call it a generational curse. And then it was like, you start learning, once you start going, I really dove into trauma-informed care and understanding trauma and what that looked like. And it wasn't that it was a generational curse, right? It was a generational cycle that nobody stopped. Because they did not know how to. They never were given the permission to stop the abuse. They never were even told that the abuse that happened to them wasn't okay. So once I learned that, okay, this is really a cycle and it's gonna keep going. If I don't stop it, I have to stop it. But I was 15 years old, had no idea what abuse was or put the name to what it was, and when someone told me it wasn't okay, didn't click for me, right? When I turned 16, Rihanna and Chris Brown happened. Rihanna and Chris Brown had this big falling out. He bit her finger. She busted him in the head in the car. it was going down, basement. And I remember Safe Horizon coming, an advocate. I was only 16 years old, and they was talking to us about domestic violence. This was the first time I even heard those words. I was 16 years old the first time I heard the words domestic violence in a sentence. That speaks volumes in itself, right? Because prior to 16, I had already experienced this. And prior to that, when I was in middle school, I had already witnessed it in my own, amongst my classmates. So at 16, I now learned that there's this thing called domestic violence. I, unfortunately, was not educated, right? And when they spoke about Rihanna and Chris Brown, I was actually on Chris Brown's side. You know? Listen. Okay. So now, follow with me, all right? Now, this is me, uneducated, uninformed. I have no idea. I'm just going about it the way I see fit, like the way I knew how. And I saw that because she hit him, she was the problem, right? But no one talked about what led up to the situations, right? There's a series of events that lead up before the big boom. We just don't know what those are, what those look like. So, fast forward again, I'm Angie, so that means I was Big Ange also when I was a teenager, meaning I'm the toughest girl in the room. Can't nobody tell me nothing. People were completely in shock that my whole entire life was being controlled by a 17-year-old boy. I couldn't even go to school by myself. He literally would walk me to my school to make sure that no other young man spoke to me, right? When I was 16 years old working at the Lower East Side Girls Club. He would walk me to work, he would pick me up from work. And in hindsight, you know, as a teenager, you think, oh my God, he loves me, he wants to be with me, I'm so excited, like my man. That's what I thought, right? And that's how the setup happens. It happens real quickly, real strategically, and you're thinking like, nah, we good, oh my God, he just wants to spend so much time with me. He want me in the house, he don't want me outside. I didn't even realize, 6 months, 12 months, I haven't seen my best friend in a year, had no idea, flew right past me. So when I started feeling a little controlled, I started to rebel against the control. Because I've always been a rebellier, I've always been an issue, always been a problem, and I'm okay with being the problem. I really am. And I remember fighting back. Now, I'll say we graduated, we kept going, we went, this relationship lasted all the way till I was 23 years old. So, when my first smack, I'm gonna say first, and I'm make sure my memory serves me right, my only smack. So the first time I got smacked, I was 17 years old. He smacked me, just bow. I was like, oh, whoa, what just happened? Now, I was used to us verbally arguing with each other. I was used to us calling all kinds of bees. I was every name under the sun, under the moon, except for the child of God that I am and the birth name that my mama gave me, right? That was normal to me. Us cursing each other out, us in the streets, making scenes, ripping my clothes off in the street because he was mad. Like, these things were so normal that it wasn't until I got smacked that I was like, oh, we going there with it. Okay, cool. Did that make me leave the relationship? Absolutely not. I did not leave that relationship, right? I now saw it as a war. Now you're my eye, right? But I'm gonna stay here because I still want to be with you. But we're now at war. So you're on one end and I'm on the other end. So it geared me up for fight. Now, what led me into these type of relationships, you know, I had a lot of trauma in my life. I didn't have enough guidance. Education on teen dating violence, domestic violence was not a thing. So it led me into this relationship. So I decided that after that smack, that would be the last time he would ever put his hands on me first. And I started to fight back, physically. So you get in my face, you scream at me, I punch you in your mouth. As simple as I could give it, right? Now, I'm very transparent with my story. I have no shame on it. I learned from it. I know where it all came from. But I have to be very transparent with you, right? Because you have to understand where I came from too. So, 23, I decided to leave. We lived in Las Vegas, Nevada. Do not recommend. Only go there to gamble and drink on the strip. Do not live there. It's boring. But 23, I decided to leave, and it was not due to the love that I had for myself. It was solely due to the love that I had for my daughter. So at 19, I gave birth. I turned 20 like 5 days later. My daughter, her name is Hope. And she's a little lion, she's a little Leo, and period, shout out to the Leos. But if she was here, she'll let you know she's the reason why I'm still alive, and I saved her life, and she definitely wants her rewards and her flowers for that. She makes sure I never forget it, okay? Anything she comes into my room and takes, she's like, but I saved your life. Like, if it wasn't for me, you probably wouldn't be here, so thank you. So many things happen in this relationship, right? When I talked about emotional abuse and mental abuse, right? Being called out my name all the time. Being told that I was never worth anything, right? And vice versa, because I called his mama a couple crackheads too. Okay? Because who you talking to? Okay, transparency, okay? So these are things that happen in our relationship, right? And one of the things that we love to make sure that we point out when it comes to our youth is sexual coercion. That's a very important one, right? Because a lot of people believe, and it's unfortunate that I have, as of this week, you know, we talk about the way our government plays such a role in these type of things, right? We all understand what's happening in the files that are being released and the names and all of the things that we are now learning that happen to children, right? And I saw this, it was on Instagram, and this man has said, they interviewed this man and they asked him, he was 45 years old. And they asked him, what is the youngest you would date? And he said, well, the youngest I would date is 18. 45-year-old grown man. The youngest I would date is 18, right? So it's to understand that someone in that nature, and that caliber, right? Why, speaking of sexual coercion, is very important when it comes to youth, right? So that we don't raise 45-year-old men that think that it's normal to be dating an 18-year-old. There's absolutely nothing that you have in common with an 18-year-old at 45. That is your child. And if you don't see them as anything of your child, you should be in jail. So now, the post continued, and a man came on and he stitched it and he said, if the lowest age he would go is what the law prohibits, he's the reason why the law is created. So, when we talk to our youth about what does that look like, right? What does sexual coercion look like? And that means that even in the middle of the act, if you sense, feel, or hear any hesitation, you remove yourself from that situation, right? Because it's very important for not just our young men, but our young women to understand that your body is your right. You own that. So even if you're in a relationship with someone, that does not mean they have the right to your body, right? And when it comes to our youth, you know, teen dating violence in New York is up 87%. Our youth in New York City are experiencing high levels of abusive relationships and sexual abuse. So the importance of understanding these numbers and understanding what these definitions are is crucial to our youth. And it's crucial to the adults in their life, right? And in their world, because a lot of our kids don't feel comfortable speaking about these conversations. You know, I was on a youth summit panel, and one of the girls, she has said that when they asked them, like, how do you talk to your mom? How would you feel about this conversation? They said, you know, sometimes I just feel like my mom, she does too much, right? Sometimes they just need an ear. Sometimes they're not looking for advice. They just need someone to listen to them. And then when they do come with advice, right, as a parent, you want to fight. You like, who's hurting my baby? Oh, hell no. Especially a mother, right? We ain't damn near die for somebody else to try to take ours out. Like, what do you mean? You know, fathers, you sacrifice so much for somebody else's child to come in and think that they can do whatever they want with your child, things that you may have never even done to your child, and now you have somebody else's hurt, wounded child causing that harm and trauma to your child, but that understand that child is so isolated, right? Teen dating violence is such an isolated situation, and you feel so alone. I remember watching my friend at 11 years old get thrown in the garbage by her boyfriend. We were in middle school. Middle school. As adults, and I'm in the field that I'm in, you know, and people tend to now, they come back and they start talking about domestic violence with me. And I remember asking her, did she ever feel that she was a victim of domestic violence and teen dating violence? And she said, no. You got thrown in the garbage by your boyfriend. But that goes to show you that we don't connect these things, right? We don't connect certain levels of abuse, or even what we thought. Maybe she thought that was just a fight. Because at that time, like, the words domestic violence wasn't in our vocabulary. So, with that, where's the other paper? I'm sorry, y'all. Anybody have any questions? I feel like I'm spoken a lot.
It doesn't have to be that you have seen the age. I was 24 in college. It's control.
Use the mic.
It's different. It doesn't have to be that you're 15, 10, or I was 24 in college. And even with the family, my sister told him, take it easy with her. What do you mean take it easy with her? I believe she should have, I don't know what, I thought she would say to him, I have sons, they are army men, and they will come and get you. But that didn't come out her mouth, because she was abused. She was sexually abused from a family member. I was abused because I had children by him, and the spirit told me, if you want to get out of that relationship, throw yourself out the window. I didn't. He pulled the gun out on me. He had a gun in the house. I didn't even know he had a gun. That was the control of it, like the young lady is saying here. And I'm learning now, and it goes from, it went from one domestic violence relationship to 3 of them. And they do try to say, oh, your family ain't no good. Your family ain't nothing. They don't got no money. But I thank God I'm a survivor. And that's it. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for trusting us with your story. You know, when we talk about teen dating violence, we're talking about just youth in general, right? And knowing that teen dating violence can start as young as 11 years old and travel all the way to college to 24. After 24, you know, your brain is fully developed at 25, and now you're considered an adult. Thank you, sister, for sharing that story with us. So I think one of the biggest things when it comes to understanding like why teens stay in these situations, right? So many different aspects. You know, a lot of kids, again, are coming from broken homes, and they're being told, I'm the only one that loves you. Nobody else loves you the way I love you. Oh, you see your sister? She's jealous of you. She's mad because you're in this relationship. Your best friend, she hates us, right? And that's both for young women and young men. You know, when I first started doing this work, I got called to a queen's school. And it was this young man young African American man, let me be very specific. That's who we work with. We work with people of color. And he was labeled as this angry savage is what I got. It was like he was just so out of control. I walked into a classroom with some quiet boy in the corner. I'm like, this can't be the crazy kid they talking about. Where he at? This young man sat with me inside of a classroom for 4 hours after school. Voluntarily. Sat with me for 4 hours just learning about domestic violence, which I was able to learn. He was highly educated on domestic violence, right? So I wanted to understand what happened, because I know what people told me he did, but I needed to understand what led up to this, because I know the big boom happened, but what led up to this big boom, and what I was able to find out was that this young man was in a relationship and he was being controlled in the relationship. He hadn't seen his friends or hung out with his friends, only saw them in school. And he decided that, at this point I'm not even gonna wanna go out because it starts arguments, right? And it brought me back to my own story, and I'm like, wow, this is me in a boy's version. And the young man, we sat there, we watched videos, we played games, we did all kinds of things, and I just listened to him, right? I listened to him, I gave him a space where he could feel safe. And I found out that not only was he being controlled, but prior to the altercation, he was getting hit in the hallway. Hands and face, just like this, right? And one thing I always tell our young women, keep your hands to yourself. Keep your hands to yourself. Because I think so often we have trained young women to understand boys aren't supposed to hit girls, right? That is the number one thing you're learning at such a young age. Boys can't hit girls. I'm a girl, you can't hit me, right? But it's to understand that that boy is also being taught that no one's supposed to hit him too. And what we tell kids when we send them off to school is, if somebody hits you, you hit them back. I don't care who it is, I'll get they mama, but ain't nobody touch my baby. That's what every mama done said before them kids left the class, the room, right? Everybody mama, they putting the grease on the baby face, like, you better not let nobody play with you. Better not let nobody bully you. The message, while in hindsight, right, is to make sure that our kids have a level of dominance where they understand they can't be picked on, and nobody would want to do that, right? The message that it sends is that it's okay for me to hit you if you hit me, right? That doesn't teach de-escalation. That doesn't teach me that I can find another route instead of going down this way. It doesn't teach me that I can actually use my words and tell you I don't like that you're hitting me, and me step away back, right? What that teaches me is to engage in the war. That's what that is. That's battle gear ready for war. So that's what our teams are dealing with, right? And then when we go over to our brothers and sisters over on the LGBTQAI plus community, right? Their numbers are about 10 times higher than heterosexuals. Yep. Yes, it is. Now, questions and the answers, right? What? That's crazy. Why? Right? Because we're talking same-sex relationships. So when I now am told I can't hit a boy and a boy can't hit me, but now this is my girlfriend. This is a female. No one ever told me I couldn't hit a female, because I am a female. So what happens? Now we knucking and bucking and ready to fight up in this house. The homicide rates are extremely high because people are killing people, right? We have youth that are literally killing each other in relationships. 2026, this is what's currently happening. So, one of the biggest things, we set up to be prepared for our youth, but I want to really leave y'all with our safety planning. Safety planning is very important when you are interacting with survivors of domestic violence, survivor of teen dating violence, however a survivor decides to identify themselves. Safety planning is extremely important, right? So I don't know if y'all, did they get the safety plan flyers? Okay, perfect. So safety planning allows us to have it here. So whether that means a child comes to you and they feel you're their safe space, because a child will find who's safe for them. And that's what we always tell our youth, you know? Make sure that you find someone that you feel safe with. And sometimes that doesn't mean that mom is your safe place. Sometimes that doesn't mean that daddy is your safe place, right? Sometimes your aunt is your safe place. Sometimes your guidance counselor may be your safe place. Sometimes, you know, your after school director is the safe place. So making sure that everybody is equipped to understanding a safety plan, right? So it's in this safety plan, you'll see name 3 safe people, right? So these are, when a child is not telling me what these are, who these people are, it's very important to collect the information and make sure that we have their numbers. Because if it goes down, it's going down. Okay, and that's what a safety plan is. A safety plan is when the boom has happened. And what is everybody's role now, right? So we can prepare as much as possible. And I think with us and Sisters in Purple, one of the things that we're making sure this year is that we're talking about preventative work, right? Versus what we do currently in our city is respond to domestic violence. What our country currently does is solely respond to domestic violence, right? So it is very important to make sure that we're planning ahead and knowing that we can hold these places, so you can keep this with you. You can also give a copy to the youth if the youth feels that they have a safe place to keep it. But this is definitely something that you would want to keep on your own, because this will have important information, right? So places that this youth can go. You can name a few places. You know, one of my biggest things is a code word. Very important, right? Because this is simple. This is the easiest safety plan that you could ever do. And a code word is to know, like, one of our code words for some of our survivors, like they'll pick a color. I'm gonna use purple because purple is who we are. So if I get a text message from a survivor and all I see is the word purple, I see a purple heart emoji, I now know that means call 911, oh hell done broke loose, right? So instantly, I can go to our safety plan. I can now see what might be our next steps, right? I know all of their information because everything that the police are gonna need to respond to that is right in my hands, right? And now this person also knows that the minute they send that emoji or they send that word, they know help is coming. They're not alone anymore, and they don't have to suffer alone. So safety planning is one of the biggest things. Ashley will leave you some safety planning just in case. It's good for not just teens, but also adults, right? When you're safety planning with survivors, now when you start dealing with survivors, things get a little more dangerous, right? Because now we have weapons. We go into the conversation of gun violence, right? And domestic violence and gun violence are literally 2 peas in a pod and they go hand in hand. So
I wanted to, I don't mean to interrupt because I'm learning myself, but I wanted Ocean, if she doesn't mind speaking, she's a survivor of DV.
yes, we welcome all survivors. Where's my sisters at?
And then also, I know female violence, but I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know Sister Mary Pinnell and Audra, she's a former police officer, so Sister Mary, and I know they have stories they might can share.
Yes.
And maybe Coco too.
I don't mind sharing my story, but I will put it out there that if it wasn't for Nan, if it wasn't for Warren, if it wasn't for my sisters Ashley and Dominique and Rev to help me with me and my son, I don't know where we would be at right now. Right now, a few months ago, I actually just beat out my custody battle with my child's father because he wants to go on Instagram and apparently other social media pages and not actually do violence, but he did intimidation tactics where he would call me all sorts of names, talk about my son. It was crazy. And I used to, and I told Ashley and Dominique almost all the time, and they was always on my side saying, Ocean is gonna be okay. They pointed me out to Warren. And they even helped me out with, Caden's clothes, got him Christmas presents, and honestly, I really thank y'all for a lot. If you guys really want to know what community support looks like, it's at Man. And if you guys really want to know who the supporters are, it's literally Ashley and Dominique and Rev. And also everybody else who has reached out and asked me, like, was I okay, like, mentally? Yeah, I was okay, but sometimes I'm not. I'm gonna be completely honest with y'all. Like, raising a son on my own is not easy because he absolutely doesn't give me no money to help him. No, I'm dead serious, he doesn't. But you know what? I don't need him. I don't need his money, I don't need his time. And like TLC said, I don't want no scrubs.
That's a mic drop right there. She said we don't want no scrubs in here, right? And I think one important thing to understand when someone is experiencing domestic violence and there's a child in place, right? The tactics now become way different, right? Using your child as leverage is one of the biggest tactics that abusers will use when their victim now decides that you no longer have power over me, right? Power and control play such a big role in this. And when we now start going into family court, baby, okay, family court just needed a moment of silence because the way survivors are treated, the way our system chooses to continue to stay uneducated, right, when it comes to survivors, and it's understanding that survivors know what's best for them. Right? When we are in these rooms fighting for survivors, not just our rights and laws and legislations, right? We're also fighting to make sure when decisions are made, survivors are sitting inside of that room. Because the only person that knows how to save me is me. I don't need a system to tell me how to save me. I'm teaching the system how to save me. I'm teaching the system the support I need, not the other way around. I'm not here to fit the system. The system needs to be created to fit me and my needs. Right?
Good evening, happy Huddle Monday, everybody. Thank you all for coming out on this afternoon, this evening. When we talk about domestic violence, I wasn't aware that the term was just so recent that, it's the law is so recent. Just knowing the practices and abuses that have gone on for decades within not only communities of color, but of communities of non-color as well. And when we talk about domestic violence, we think about just young people and relationships, whether it's male on male or female on female, or male with female, female with male. But domestic violence also deals with siblings abusing each other, family domestic violence, family abuse, whether it be parents abusing their children or their children abusing their parents, or their nieces, their nephews, and their cousins abusing cousins. And so this is something that we all also have to deal with because we have made it too normal. We have normalized family violence. And unfortunately, the precincts, the police departments aren't prepared to deal with it because like you said, they'll say it's a family dispute. Yeah, it might be a family dispute, but we just might need the authorities to come in and save us from each other, whether we're blood family relatives or not. Violence is violence and it should not be accepted by anybody. I mean, if you don't like what one person says is one thing, that does not give you a right to put your hands on anyone for any reason. Self-defense is one thing, but just out of anger because you had a bad day at work, maybe because you had a little bit too much to drink, maybe the kids was getting on your nerves, maybe your husband got on your nerves, that still does not give one a right to physically attack anybody for any given reason. And if one does put their hands on another individual, there should be ramifications. And the ramifications should be, the law should be called, and the law should do what is right, arrest the individual and prosecute the individual according to whatever the case may be. So I just wanted to just bring to light that, again, it's not just about spousal relationships, but the bigger picture and where it stems from is abuses that come from marriage. And if we address that, I think that will kind of nip it in the bud and allow us to deal with the abuse that goes on in relationships. So thank you. Thank you guys.
Thank Thank you, brother. Thank you for sharing. And I want to point out as well, right, when we talk about domestic violence, understand that domestic violence is basically the trunk, right, of a tree, if we think about a tree. And then we have all of these what are they, roots, not roots, branches. Lord child, I told you I had 1 hour. The branches of that tree, what are those that look like, right? So the branches are teen dating violence. The branches are intimate partner violence, meaning in a relationship. The branches are family violence. The branches are senior violence, right? These are the branches that domestic violence is, this trunk, and that root needs to be addressed. And that's what doesn't get addressed. Not just in our community, but one thing I can say with my chest is that domestic violence is the only form of violence that does not discriminate. It does not care what your race is. It does not care what your tax bracket is, right? We understand that everybody is prone to domestic violence, right? If you see it in the news, celebrities, domestic violence. These people are wealthy, right? Down to the homeless lady, unfortunately, is down the block. And I bet you talk to that woman, her story started with domestic violence, right? So we're gonna give another brother. Come on, brother. All right. That's what I'm talking about, interactive. That's what I like.
Listen, dropping so much science. Oh my God, I love it. What's coming up for me is everything you're saying is about emotions. And for the most part, we don't get raised on how to manage our emotions. We don't have emotional intelligence. And for me, that's one of the most important things that humanity as a whole needs to understand. With emotional intelligence and maturity, it'll end racism, it'll end domestic violence, it'll end, man, all of this crazy crap. Because I have a list of personal quotes, philosophical quotes. People call them Tonyisms. And one of my main Tonyisms is, feelings are terrific servants, but terrible masters. And that's because of the way our brain is designed. I'm saying this because I'm willing to support y'all with what I'm about to say if you want. Okay. So, turns out that we have 5 brain functions. Our brain starts with, we observe something. Oh, what was that? Then we have a feeling about what we just observed. Then we have a thought about what we just felt. Then we have to decide, are we going to follow our feelings or our thoughts? And then we take action. But most of the time we follow our feelings because our feelings come before our thoughts. Why does our feelings come first? Because we are manifestation creatures in this vibration of world, universe. And so we always get what we are connected to. So if we don't know how to manage our emotions, we don't know how to master and manifest what's really in our commitment, what we're really most focused on. So for me, if a person doesn't have emotional intelligence, we's in troubles. For real.
We have that in office currently in our administration.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all see what we have.
Oh boy. Yeah, I would like to feel bad for Christy Noel, but I don't. I know that's just my thing. Okay, great. But the words that I use is not connected to representing National Action Network. But, yes, thank you. But for real, like when people follow their emotions and don't analyze their emotions, they end up doing things that make them say, "Well, see what happened was," or "seemed like a good idea at the time," but you never had a real thought. So get out of here with that. So I'm saying that we need, as a species overall, to know how to manage our emotions. When we do, it's a completely different planet. We'll be so much more evolved and enlightened. And that's what's there. So that's what I want to say, and can't wait till that happens.
We on the verges of it, right? And I think I wanna lean in a little more what you're talking about when it comes to emotions, right? And knowing just our history as a people, right? When we're talking about what our brain does to us, right? We go into different modes. So fight, flight, flee, or fawn, right? Everybody forgets the fawn part of it all. And when we are in fight mode, our brain is literally telling us we're at war. So when you do have something that happens to you, right, your brain takes a second to analyze what is actually happening in front of you. Are you in current danger, right? And if you have lived in survival mode all of your life, your brain is gonna let you know we're in danger, it's time to fight, right? You may not even be in danger. Danger might not even be in the horizons right now. But because you're trapped in this, in survival mode, right? Your brain is like, yeah. I know that you say you're safe, but no, this actually doesn't feel safe. So no, it's time to fight. And you go straight from that emotion, just straight, it's going straight there, right? But that is literally something your brain tells you to do. So how do we have control? I remember I went over to a call to men. They had a coalition and we went across to North Carolina and I got to do a workshop and really learn about how to work with people that cause harm. So it's one of my biggest things. I love working with people that cause harm, right? Maybe I'm a Leo, maybe I want to bully the bullies. I don't know. But I like the challenge, right? I love to analyze why do you think the way you think, right? Because I've seen you so many times. I've seen you in my family. I've seen you in my community. I was never taught how to actually even interact with you in that way. So how do I now tell you that I'm not calling you out, I'm calling you in, right? What you're doing is not okay. So now how do we have these kind of conversations, right? When people are causing harm, how do we tell them? How do we tell them that it's not okay? And I think it's for us to remember that, again, we're gonna go back to what? Hurt people hurt people. So when we now wanna analyze and help someone who we now know is doing something that's not good, right? We're not coming from a place of judgment. I'm not here to shun you and tell you everything you're doing is messed up and you're wrong for that, right? Because I don't know what led you to this, right? So what's going on with you internally? Where did that hurt come from? We talk about family violence, right? A lot of people's first person that caused them harm was their parents. And we were taught that no matter what, you have to love your parents. What does that do? There's a thing called Stockholm Syndrome, right? Stockholm Syndrome forces you to love the person that's also causing you harm, which is a lot of times why survivors are standing in place. Why children will go against the parents that's abusing on them, right? Because Stockholm Syndrome is real. So when I'm working with people that cause harm, a lot of them are trapped. Right, so I always use this analogy is that I work with a lot of men that cause harm, work with women too, but the majority of the men are wanting to get the help themselves. So they come to me saying, I need to fix something. Something's wrong, I don't like what I'm doing anymore, right? So when I'm working with these men, I'm not looking at no 32-year-old, 40-year-old man, 60-year-old man, right? I'm looking at a 5-year-old little boy who was hurt so bad and nobody told him what happened to him wasn't okay. So I'm not gonna be up here coming at you as an adult, because I gotta come back down, because I need to let that little boy know that he's free. And what happened to him wasn't okay, but him as an adult has to get the help that you need, because we can't keep functioning like this. So that's one of the biggest things, that if you take away anything, right? Understanding that teen dating violence will graduate into domestic violence if we do not step in front of it. And how do we step in front of it, right? Make this conversation normal. Don't make this conversation taboo. Don't make people feel that abuse is something they have to stay quiet in, because for far too long, we have stood quiet. Thank you, guys.
Let's give Sisters in Purple and Angie still stand up and clap them up. Thank you for that. Thank you so much. Make sure you guys keep these for the safety plans in your handouts that they gave out. I know some people want to speak to you in private, so I don't want y'all to run up. We're gonna wrap up. The time is coming to an end. It's almost 8:30. But again, we just want to salute you guys for everything that you shared. You dropped jewels tonight. And for those who, I know some people don't want to come to the mic or didn't want to come to the mic, just want to know if you're going through anything, there are resources. Do not be ashamed, whatever end you're on, if you might be an abuser or being abused. Do not be ashamed, you're not here alone. Person that causes harm. We're all here to grow together, regardless of what we are here for or being held accountable for. There's help for you. And I just want you to know that there are resources and you are still, it's okay, you are loved. And yeah, it's because we've been like, Huddle's like, this is our 13th year. and then you'd be surprised. There's so much that we've had to go through. I'm not talking about Ocean, I'm talking about people that don't want their names called. So we just want you to know, if you are in the room and you need assistance, there's assistance for you. We love you, and do not be ashamed about it, all right? All right. We're going to call Mr. Christian to close us out in prayer. Again, please keep the Jackson family in your heart and prayers. We want Tony Vitter in with the Black History Fact. We forgot to share that earlier. And then we're going to close out with prayer. Love to all the women in the room. It's Women's History Month, Women's History Month. Don't forget to celebrate the queens in your life, whether they are known or not known. They are special. Each and every one of you are special indeed. All right, Tony Vitter, Black History Fact, and Mr. Christian, please close us out in prayer.
All right, everybody. I definitely need some reading glasses, so I'm gonna be using my phone as a microscope to see my stuff. So if y'all laugh at me, it's okay. Oh boy. I thought we was gonna do it. All right, let me be quick here. Okay. This weekend, on March 6th, 1857, perhaps the most thoroughly racist decision ever recorded by the U.S. Supreme Court. What the heck is going on here, man? Released on this day, the Dred Scott decision. Scott and his wife Harriet had sued in St. Louis Circuit Court, claiming they were free because their slave master had taken them from a slave state to the free territory of Missouri. However, in a majority opinion written by Chief Justice Roger B. Taney, T-A-N-E-Y, the court ruled, number one, blacks, be they slaves or free, were not and could not be U.S. citizens. Wow. And thus were not entitled to file suit in U.S. courts. Two, denied Congress the power to restrict slavery by declaring the 1820 Missouri Compromise unconstitutional. Three, declared that where the Constitution said all men are created equal, the phrase did not include blacks. And the four, told African Americans that they had no rights the white man was bound to respect. Oh my God. Last thing. Okay. All right. However, reflecting the law of unintended consequences, the Dred Scott decision was so harsh, and so angered anti-slavery forces that it helped pave the way for the Civil War, which ended all slavery in America. Thank God. All right.
Well, thank you. Good night. Everybody stand. We're going home. We're going to pray and we're going home. Let us look to the Lord in prayer. Father, we thank you for this time and this opportunity that you have brought us here. Thank you for what our eyes have seen and what our ears have heard. Father, as we leave this place, never from your sight and your presence, God, get us to our various destinations and find all things well. Lord, we continue to lift up the Jackson family, that as they are dealing with their time of bereavement, that, Father, you said you will be a present help in the time of trouble. Father, we also continue to pray for our president and founder, Reverend Sharpton, that, Lord, you will continue to strengthen his mind, his body, his spirit. Lord, cover him in the midnight hours. Guard his heart, guard his mind, and give him peace when he sleeps. Give him peace as he walks the streets, as he continues in this fight and goes on in the legacy that we go forth. And Lord, encourage and entice each of us that are in this place to take up that baton, to go forward in justice. What we did not do to say in this prayer, cover every area that was missed. And we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Y'all are dismissed.